Welcome back to THU TV. I'm Ian Fales. I'm here with Florian from VFX. How are you?
I'm pretty good.
That's
Just
great.
had my first cup of coffee, so
Yeah.
the day gets just started.
I haven't had a coffee yet.
No?
That's bad, isn't
How do you
it?
manage to survive?
Well, I might make a lot of enemies,
Yeah.
but I'm not a big fan of the coffee here.
What?
Because in Australia, we have become coffee snobs.
Yeah, I know.
You know?
Yeah, I know. Like as well as in New Zealand, right? It's
Yeah.
kinda- yeah.
I don't know how that happened. We make good coffee, clearly, and
Yeah.
also we really big on milky coffees. Like, do you know about a thing called the flat white?
Yes, of course.
How do you know about that?
We have it in Berlin. It kind of
Right.
spread from Australia around the world.
Yeah,
Excuse me.
yeah.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. Yeah. It's Australian coffee culture has had a big impact on the at least last 5 years around the globe, I think.
I think it has. When I first started going to America, Starbucks basically only had that filtered coffee,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is still what most Americans drink. And then suddenly on the cafe menu is this flat white.
Yeah.
And I remember asking someone there once, like, why is that on there? And, because Australians ask for it all the time.
Or just walk the streets of Soho in London and you'll see little Kiwi or Australian coffee places.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad we're talking about visual effects here. It's really great. Florian, it's your first time at THU.
yeah.
Why have you come over? What did they ask you to do here?
Well, Andre paid me a visit in Berlin at our studio earlier this year, pretty much like 5 or 6 months ago. And he introduced me to the concept of THU. That is quite different from all the other conferences because you're kind of stuck in this creative camp for 5 days at least.
You are stuck. It's a
Yes.
resort. You
Yes,
know.
I think that also kind of is almost similar to the concept of FMX in Stuttgart, that you're kind of detached from the big visual effects houses. All the people giving talks and presentations are not in their natural habitat, so they can't escape the discussions that you have in a hallway or whatever. So speakers are very accessible, and it kind of builds a very strong community. Of course, the difference between FMX and THU is still that THU is kind of a creative camp for people. Like you see people sketching everywhere.
I know. It's
Everywhere you
amazing.
look, people with their notebooks open and pencils and just doing great art and kind of inspiring each other while they do that, kind of trading techniques and so on.
Do you know what? I hate that because I get really jealous
Same
and
here,
really like self-conscious that I can't
Yes.
draw like that.
Well,
Yeah.
that's why I'm using computers to draw. It's my pencil.
That's right. Yeah,
But
yeah.
yes, artistic knowledge or understanding doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the ability to draw, Ian.
No, it is nice looking at that work
Yes.
though. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you'll be talking later in the week. What is your topic at THU?
I'm giving one of the keynotes tomorrow night. It's Rise, my company just turned 10 years old.
Amazing.
We kind of went from a four-guy garage band to small boutique house for like with specialty tasks that we were really good at. We were one of the first shops to work with nuke projection mapping and moving camera before others had even started working with nuke in their pipeline. And then in the end, we turned into this 100 full-time staff and like 200 total with freelancers and so on in 5 different offices all over Germany. And
5 now.
Yeah.
Which ones are they?
We opened Munich in January.
Right. And you're in Stuttgart?
And we're in Stuttgart, Cologne, Berlin, and then there's one in Vienna in Austria.
Oh, right.
But yeah, it's crazy the way that the demand for what we're doing has shaped the world, but also kind of how you have to be very precise about your own publicity work to make people aware of what you're doing. So my talk is going to be not only about the history of the first 10 years, but also how you can strategically choose your artistic battles in order to succeed in business. So it's kind of both. I'm going to give a broad overview of kind of the developments that we've made in art,
Right.
while at the same time it has helped us tremendously in marketing our abilities and succeeding in business. So I think because there are a lot of young people here who are really passionate about what they do, but sometimes when you're really young, you're very blindfolded for all things business, and you're not really paying attention on how to turn your hobby into a profession and to earn money with it. So I'm trying to kind of go down the artistic path and still inspire some people to maybe also pay attention to how this could turn into a profession that kind of feeds you and pays for your rent.
Yes, because of course historically visual effects has been a challenging industry.
Yes.
You know, a lot of people want to work in it. Sometimes the margins are tough.
Yeah.
My only observation of that now is that there's a lot of work around. You know,
Yes.
there's Star Wars, Marvel, animated features, TV work.
Well, if you look at the whole market, it's not only like 3 DC comic book adaptations from Warner a year. It's also like 3 Marvel movies instead of
Yes.
2.
Yeah.
You've got a Star Wars movie every year.
Yeah.
They might do another Indiana Jones. You've got a Transformers and a Star Trek movie appearing every now and then. Currently, they're shooting the second Fantastic Beasts movie, and then you've got all these AAA animated feature films, no matter if it's DreamWorks or the Lego movies for Warner and so on. So that's kind of eating out of the same talent base,
Yeah.
and so the demand is enormous. And now that you already are at this level where the major Hollywood studios are producing so much more content, and you're saving. For example, physical production values for the visual effects side of things, where you only do partial builds of sets to be more flexible in post and kind of do something outrageous that's like so big that it would never fit a soundstage. It's or creature-wise,
Yeah.
the creature work and character work. That is something that has fundamentally changed over the last 5 years, that every filmmaker and producer has gotten so much more confident about using visual effects to get, well, let's say, more bang for their buck. Like, because they're all competing with one another. If one film producer's product, like the final film, does not compete with the same visual values as the others have shown to the audience, then you have a problem in marketing your film. So
Yeah.
it's a very competitive market in making a film successful, and a way of doing that is, of course, offering production values
Yes.
that only visual effects can offer these days.
Well, and the other thing, obviously, is that it's a global market, a global industry,
Yes.
and it has been for some time. It was obviously concentrated in LA at some
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
But tell me about the growth of the German industry. I had Martin from Trickster here yesterday, and you know, there's other companies doing really well in Germany too. Scanline's there, and Macrovision and Pixo's there as well, I think. But tell me a bit about the German visual effects industry and how that's kind of set up.
Well, I'd say, of course, we've been building, we've been getting a lot of trust from especially Trickster and Rise have been getting a lot of trust from Marvel Studios over the last almost decade.
Yes.
Like since the very first Captain America,
Yeah.
the first proper Marvel Studios production after they stopped working for Paramount. I think that was kind of let's say that was kind of what Harry Potter did for the London industry. Marvel Studio might have done for the German industry
Yeah.
on a maybe smaller scale.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, if you look at how much work was done in London on the first Harry Potter film, and then see that the 8th installment, the final installment, was completely done in London. And the scope of the visual effects work was enormous, then of course that contributed
Yeah.
quite a lot to the growth there. But also demand in general, even on German productions, has skyrocketed. If you're looking at, we've just finished work on the first German Netflix series,
Oh, right. What's that called?
Dark.
Okay.
Just Dark. It just premiered at the Toronto Film Festival and
Oh, right.
received rave reviews. I think it's going to be online in October, so just next month. But that's something to look forward to, and that's also something that's kind of adding to the demand that now you have Amazon Studios, Netflix, Hulu, all of them creating an HBO, Stars Network, Epics, you name it. It's like television has become such a gigantic market that's not only rivaling feature film, but sometimes even exceeding the demand. I mean, look at Game of Thrones. I don't know what budgets they're spending on each season, but it's enormous, and it's almost as if it doesn't matter anymore.
Well, and it's feature film quality, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's
of course.
cinematic.
Yeah,
It
there's
just
no
is.
difference anymore.
Yeah, there's no difference.
Yeah.
But interestingly, so that you've obviously taken on those Marvel films and TV, but Rise has also been doing animated feature work,
Yes.
hasn't it?
Yeah. Recently, we've worked on a pan-European co-production last year called Richard the Stork. We did kind of a small chunk of the work just to get our hands dirty and to see how we can make the pipeline that we have and the tools that we have available work for animated feature film, and especially working with little birds, getting feather sims right, and all that, and some water stuff. So I think we completed around 350 shots on that film in stereo, and it turned out so well. One of my partners, Sven Panicke, he's like he comes from an animation background.
Right.
He loves animated feature films. He's been doing it for a long time, and he kind of started building this, branching out a bit into the animated feature business. So right now we pretty much a year ago, we set up our own production company called Rise Pictures, which is producing and co-producing feature film content. Doesn't matter if it's live action or animated content. But now we've closed the deal with Constantine Film, the production company behind the Resident Evil films and so on, for our first full feature animated movie called Dragon Rider, based on a children's book by Cornelia Funke, who also wrote Inkheart. So that's going to be huge, and production is already underway. And it's very exciting. I mean, also kind of looking at the people who've already done so much animation work at Rise, they were always kind of asking like, hey guys, don't you want to start doing animated features or at least shorts as well? Because animating digidoubles might be very rewarding, and it's very challenging work because it has to be 100% photoreal, but every animator kind of feels that tickling in their fingertips to just kind of do animated feature at some point.
And branch out to something more creative in a way.
Yes.
And of course, you're joining a long line of visual effects studios that have branched out to animation, PDI and even ILM doing Rango and Animalogic and ImageWorks doing animation. Apart from anything else, it's a great way to keep artists busy and employed, but also if you do end up owning the IP, that's also another big benefit, right?
Absolutely,
isn't it?
yeah. I mean, that's working as a service company. I mean, of course, the rebates have had an enormous impact worldwide on the visual effects business, as everyone in LA knows. And the way that work has been moved from continent to continent, just like that, is just mind-boggling. I mean, we didn't have a German rebate for visual effects only in place for a long time.
Oh, right.
Now we kind of have rebates in our Stuttgart and Munich office, and just recently we got a national rebate for 25% on visual effects work nationwide. So it finally kind of picked up where we dropped the ball after attracting so many big feature films for shooting in Germany, but it kind of never got the visual effects. It was kind of the fact that visual effects can be, the work can be distributed without people actually boarding a plane and traveling, because you're just transferring the files over the internet and doing the whole bidding process, is something that most people aren't even aware of today. So it's kind of an educational task to say, like, this is how our business works. And sometimes we're creating 100% of the images you see in theaters. Like, look at what Framestore did with Gravity. There's most of the film is 100% CG.
Absolutely.
So are you still referring to that as a live action film, or is that just a photoreal animated feature with some Sandra Bullock in it? So it's that's kind of the thing. I think this paradigm change that we're facing right now, because the common perception is that we're just doing a little bit of work on these otherwise physically shot feature films, and that's not the case anymore. It's
No, and in fact, that's part of the post-production argument, isn't
Yeah,
it? That
yeah.
visual effects used to only come in at the end.
Yes.
But in fact, it's much better to come in the planning stages,
Yeah.
and you want to.
Yes.
Because you don't want to overspend where you don't need to, and you want to be
Exactly.
part of the process. And in fact, here's another thing that I want to talk to you about, and it sounds like it's almost part of your talk later this week, which is there's very creative people working in visual effects.
Yes.
They're not just pixel jockeys or whatever we want to call them.
Yeah.
They've got things to contribute.
Yes. I mean,
Yeah.
especially when you're looking at just an example, when we redesigned the jetpack and the suit on Captain America Civil War.
Yes.
And Falcon's backpack opens and the drone comes flying out. All the mechanics of that, the way the wings fold and disappear into the jetpack, that's all stuff that the art department doesn't do for you. It's kind of they design the costume with the costumes department and kind of make sure that it all kind of aligns perfectly with the comic books and the Marvel universe. But all the mechanics of how those gadgets work or how interfaces are designed, and then you have people who come from an animation background and suddenly they have to almost have a degree in engineering, because suddenly they have all these little gears and bolts and hydraulic little pieces that have to work like a real machine. Of course, you can cheat it a bit in CG, and the wings don't actually have to fit the backpack. But you know what I mean? It's like it has to look for a large audience. It has to look like a plausible mechanic device. And suddenly you see yourself in engineering, and you're building something that could actually work to a certain degree.
Yeah, and frankly, you're become part of the art department at that point. You know, not officially, but it's absolutely the role that you're doing, isn't it? Yeah.
I also think that sometimes the vocabulary that we're using is somewhat not the right approach for a general audience. When we're talking about technical directors or pipelines and more efficiency and so on. It's no wonder when directors say that it's all physically shot, it's all real, it's all in camera and so on. And on the other side, you have visual effects companies saying that they're trying to improve their efficiency by adding more technical tools and writing more software and so on. I think it's really important to always repeat that this is a creative profession, and there's only a certain degree of automation that you're trying to deploy amongst your departments to take away the unnecessary work and that keeps you from focusing on the important creative aspects.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in the end, it's more like these people are designers. Like when you would be looking at a car manufacturer and you have this huge design department building sculptures of cars that might be built or prototypes and so on, or concept cars. Nobody would refer to those people as kind of just technical directors or whatever. These people are referred to as designers. They have a creative profession, and people are looking up to them. And sometimes they're even paying close to 100,000 euros or dollars for a car because it's beautiful. So in our way, I think we really need to push for this paradigm change that the people that we employ are designers. They're designing film images, sometimes 100% of them. And that's something that more people can relate to than all these technical terms.
I absolutely agree. And as much as you're also creative people, you're also problem solvers. I remember some work, and I hope I haven't totally got this wrong, that you guys did relatively recently on Fast 8.
Yes.
Right? The finale, the final pullback scene.
Yes.
That until people saw a breakdown of the work, didn't realize how synthetic that environment was. And I feel like you could have shot that. But because they had to, it was sort of last minute, I'm guessing. Yeah. It was such a great problem that was solved.
When also it's when you have such a large cast of very expensive actors.
Yes, can't bring them all together.
It's really difficult because I think I'm just assuming most of them are living probably in LA.
Yeah.
Well, move them, including your whole crew, to New York.
Yeah.
Find a building to put the terrace on. The whole set construction, then the permissions to do the helicopter shoot and so on. It's just something that you don't want to go through. It's a soundstage is such a beautifully controlled environment where you can shoot very efficiently with your cast. You can take camera angles that you can't do without some sort of crane or a huge rig on a real rooftop. There you would probably face a lot of wind, so you'd have sound problems and so on. So in the end, it's kind of nice to have that as a controlled environment, close to everyone's house, so they can it's a very proficient way of shooting.
Yeah.
And then the only thing you need is kind of the pullback in New York, and then you have to bridge it synthetically by building a pretty big chunk of a certain New York district to kind of fit that in with the cityscape and do the digital pullback. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, I love that scene. I really implore people to go and look for it on your website. Believe it or not, we've run out of time, Florian.
What?
That went really quick.
Yeah.
Really great talking to you, and it's been great to know you all these years.
Again.
Thanks so much.